Well, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I'm going to be filling out a way too early Gavin Newsom versus JD Vance election prediction. I do first want to go over and detail the current election betting, where it's trending. Does it really matter right now? To give everyone a timeline, we do still have the midterms over a year away. We do still have the primaries for both the Democrats and Republicans around two-ish, 2.5 years away. And then the candidates, the conventions, things of that nature, a little bit less than 3 years away. And the election is over 3 years away still for 2028. So there is still a ways away. We do have updated odds. You can see who I'm going with. I am doing Gavin Newsom and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez against JD Vance and Marco Rubio. The Vance Rubio ticket could be a Vance Tulsi Gabbard if they want to balance it a little bit better. Or I have heard Vance and Don Jr. get thrown around to try and keep the Trump voter, in line, the low propensity voter coming back to the polls. If you go with maybe a younger Trump, I don't think they're going to go with Don Jr. But right now, Vance is the far and away favorite. I've already done a prediction, but the last time I did a prediction, it was right after the election in a way too early Vance v. Newsom. And here we are again. So I did it like a year ago, and now I'm doing it again because this is just where it is in terms of Newsom now going ahead pretty, significantly within the Democratic Party when it comes to the perceived leader of the 2028 Democratic primaries, which are far and away thought to be, it's a more open field than the Republican situation, with Vance perceived as the guy in which Trump likely will endorse, considering he is the VP. But we don't know with Trump. Trump is unpredictable. When it comes to Newsom AOC, I was thinking about Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer. I think Newsom's going to have a big problem in the Rust Belt, especially going up against someone like Vance. So maybe you go with Whitmer from Michigan, who's liked there, or at least semi-liked. AOC is kind of the younger. I mean, they choose Newsom. The further left people are not going to be happy, so you go with AOC to try and placate to them. Whitmer, I don't think, would do a great job of that. AOC can be, the younger, further liberal candidate, and so maybe they would pick AOC. Although I'm not really confident they would choose AOC even as a VP. Some people are talking about AOC as the nominee. That certainly is not going to happen. Right now, this is just the overall chances to win the election. Vance at 28, Newsom at 22, AOC at 7, Rubio at 5. So this is who I'm going with in terms of the presidential candidate and the VP. It's these four. It's the top four. And then you've got Whitmer at 4. You've got Buttigieg at 3. Just looking at the Republican nominee, Vance is still sitting at 52%. He's come down a few percentage points. Really doesn't matter. Rubio's at 8. Trump is at 4. With Trump, the age is the biggest problem. I mean, you could try and turn some things around when it comes to the 12th and 22nd Amendment. I think you probably wouldn't be able to do anything in terms of that. But even if you were, and you could kind of manipulate it with Trump serving 2 terms but non-consecutive, maybe you could do something like that. Tucker Carlson at 4%. It's a little intriguing with him. He said he's not going to run. People go back on their word. Carlson would be more anti-Israel, or at least perceived significantly more anti-Israel and more America first than a Vance or a Rubio. You've got DeSantis at 3%. I think his time has passed. You've got some other people down there. Maybe Gabbard as a VP, like I was saying earlier. Newsom is now up to 35%. Even just like, what was this? A half a month ago, Newsom was at 20%, so he's gone up significantly. AOC's all the way down. I mean, Newsom is the clear favorite now. Wes Moore at 6%. Wes Moore is an interesting one people talk about, maybe as a VP option, but I don't know how that would work with Newsom, with Moore being from Maryland, and especially Newsom in terms of balancing a ticket with potentially a minority female, because this is an optic party for the Democrats. If they go with Newsom, a straight white male, you're looking at a minority female for sure. So just taking a look at this election, obviously when it comes to the western side, the west coast of the United States, there's not going to be any competitive, states there. All of these states we know. I'm going to leave the swing states. So Nevada and Arizona most certainly will be swing states. We're going to give Newsom Colorado. New Mexico, maybe I leave it and talk about it, but I just don't see New Mexico swinging Republican. I mean, but I think New Mexico, what was it, 5 or 6 points? It's very early. We'll say it's we'll say it's a little bit lighter blue, but I don't think it's going to be a swing state there. Alaska obviously going to Vance and Rubio, Oklahoma, Kansas. When it comes to Nebraska, I really do think they should just do away in terms of Nebraska and Maine with the congressional districts. They talked about it back in the summer of 2024. Is it actually going to happen? I think everything winner take all. It's clean, it fits, it's better. Democrats are very competitive, and they do, at least the past few elections, they have won the second district. You can see this is just Nebraska at large. Republicans win Nebraska, just the overall popular vote, by like 25 points. They win the first district, they win the third district, but it's that second district, that Omaha district, that's the issue right now. If, based on the voting patterns, I mean, it was a very, very solid environment for Republicans in 2024, and Trump still lost it by 5 or 6 points. So it's hard to really see the second district right now going to Vance and Rubio, but you could make a case for it. I really just think both Nebraska and Maine should be winner take all. When it comes to Maine, normally the Democrats, you've got like an 8 or a 9 point advantage there. They always win the first district, and then the Republicans normally take the second district. Trump won the second district by, I believe, around 9 to 10 points in 2024. But if both Maine and Nebraska became winner take all, it would be a slight advantage, I would say, for Republicans, because they've got a slightly better chance at winning Maine at large than Democrats do Nebraska at large. But I don't think it really changes much. But basically what we're looking at now in terms of this election format is the Democrats siphoning one electoral vote out of Nebraska. And by the way, there's talk about them possibly gerrymandering out of Nebraska and just getting rid of that district altogether by making it very hard in terms of the way they can, draw the lines. But the Democrats siphoning one electoral vote out of Nebraska, the Republicans siphoning one electoral vote out of Maine. That's basically what it is. You've got Minnesota. I just can't call Minnesota a swing state at this point. I think you're looking at a 5 or a 6 point victory for the Democrats. It's hard to say this early if Vance can be more competitive in Minnesota. They've certainly brought in a lot of migrants. I mean, you take a look at the Minneapolis mayoral situation. It's very, very sad. You've got Iowa. Maybe we'll get another poll. Could we get another Iowa poll with maybe this time Newsom being up by 3? I don't know. You've got Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio. Yeah, Ohio. How about Ohio now? Pure red state. I don't even think you really can't argue it if you're a liberal in terms of Ohio at this point. Illinois going to the Democrats, even though it was a little bit closer in 2024. It's just that you're not going to see that crazy of a shift. You've got Florida. This is where the math gets really good for Republicans now. I would say, maybe you could lighten it a little bit in these two states, but these are conservative states. Normally when I'll go really solid for locks, and I do think these states are locks. I don't necessarily do it based off percentage, but I think Ohio and Florida are locks. I think Minnesota and Nebraska and New Mexico are close to locks for Democrats, but you could see maybe in one scenario the Republican winning it. Georgia's obviously a swing. South Carolina Republicans win that easily. You've got Virginia at this point. Virginia's another one where people say, well, maybe it's possible. There's just such a massive liberal cohort in Northern Virginia, people that are, residents or would-be residents of D.C., but the prices are so high. Virginia is going to be a liberal state, very likely. There's not much I can say about that. And then you've got all these other... I'm going to leave New Hampshire alone. All these other states. New Jersey, you could argue, maybe a little bit lighter. Maybe there's a chance in New Jersey. I think Republicans will try it, and the Democrats will have to be forced to expunge resources defending it. But all these other states are just heavy, heavy liberals. There's no doubt about it. You've also got New York, which is going to be a liberal state. So right now, I would say in terms of the potential swing states, this is what you're looking at. Minnesota, New Mexico, Virginia, you could argue those states, but I just don't see it. So now it really gets to the dynamics of the matchup. Newsom against Vance. Newsom at 222, Vance at 219, kind of built in there. Going swing state by swing state. Nevada is a state that Trump won by 3.5 points. Republicans have made some headway in Nevada. I would say Nevada is a very, very slight. Right now, it's around 50-50. I mean, you can't predict Vance v. Newsom 2.5, 3 years away. But I would say Vance wins the state very, very narrowly. And I would also say Vance wins Arizona as well, based off of the Republican surge we saw in 2024. the governorships and the Senate races are a little bit, different and independent of what happens at the national level. I think Vance is set up very nicely, or any Republican is set up very nicely in Arizona with around, I mean, Trump wins the state by 5 or 6 points. You go to Vance, maybe you lose 2 or 3 points, but you still end up winning. So we could see these two states split in 2028. It wouldn't shock me if Newsom won Nevada and Vance won Arizona. But right now, that's what I would say. When it comes to Georgia, I would give Newsom Georgia at this point, or just the Democratic generic candidate Georgia. There is a lot of liberal migration to Georgia. I think Georgia and North Carolina could be an interesting strategy for Democrats if they're able to take those two states. I mean, that's 32 electoral votes right there that Republicans won in 2024. North Carolina is a state that Trump won 3 times, but it was very, very close all 3 times. So people have to understand, even though he won the state every time he was a candidate, it was very, very close. I will be giving it to Rubio just slightly, though. It's going to be close again. I mean, you're talking about like a 2-3 point win the last 3 election cycles for the Republicans in North Carolina. Taking a look at we'll also do New Hampshire. I'm going to give the Democrats New Hampshire just barely. And then it comes down to the Rust Belt. So you've got 252, 242. I think this is where it becomes a problem for the Democrats in a Vance v. Newsom matchup. You've got Newsom regarded as a coastal, liberal elitist, being from California, being the governor of California. You've got Vance, born in a small town in Ohio, being a senator for Ohio, having a more Rust Belt appeal. Republicans using the rhetoric of middle-class jobs returning. I think it's going to be very positive for Vance. I think Vance, in terms of these 3 states right now, Pennsylvania is perceived as the most Republican narrowly. Trump won Pennsylvania by around 2.5 to 3 points. Michigan and Wisconsin were closer, which could be a slight encouragement for Democrats, because this was a very, very good cycle for Republicans, and Wisconsin and Michigan were that competitive. This would put Vance at 271. So at this point, Vance would already win the election, because if Newsom wins these 2 states, that's 271 to 267. So it just kind of shows the format and how possibly important Nevada would be. Now, in terms of these states splitting, the Rust Belt splitting, it's very, very rare. Normally the states vote together, but we also have to add the context of Ohio was a part of the Rust Belt. The only reason, electorally it's not considered is because it's a pure Republican state at this point. Ohio was a swing state back in 2016. Liberals thought it was going to be a swing state back in 2020. It's a state that Trump has won three times, all by at least 8 points. Because again, remember, that was going to be a swing state back in 2016. It normally used to always decide the election. So we've seen these Rust Belt states, at least Ohio, move. Maybe Pennsylvania is on the track with the voter registration. But right now, this far out from an election, maybe if Newsom chooses Whitmer and it's that close, it could push Newsom over the finish line to win Michigan and break up the Rust Belt in terms of them not voting together. But I just think, to me, the scenario with Newsom in terms of a broken up Rust Belt, I think it would be Vance taking Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Newsom taking Michigan if he has Whitmer. That's what I would see in terms of that. But in this scenario, you're looking at Vance doing very well at 296, kind of similar along the lines of Trump, just losing Georgia just because of the amount of liberal migration there. I think it's possible that Vance could win Georgia. A lot of it comes down to running up margins in rural places and getting the voter turnout that Donald Trump was able to get. That could be a problem for Vance, although Trump will be campaigning for Vance, we would imagine. I can't see any scenario where Vance is the candidate and Trump is kind of lukewarm on him outside. I mean, that would be a disaster for the Republican Party. But this is kind of where I would put it right now. North Carolina is one you could argue as well with Newsom against Vance. Maybe there's a little bit better of a chance depending on the migration into North Carolina. To me, the liberal play would be like a Georgia, a North Carolina. I just find it very hard if they do choose Newsom, even if it's with someone like Whitmer or maybe Westmore would be perceived better than someone like AOC for the Rust Belt. I just can't see Newsom performing well against Vance in the Rust Belt and how important that is. And that's why I kind of lean towards Newsom not being the pick for the Democrats and the Democrats going with someone that's kind of like an outsider. Who that ends up being, I don't know. But right now, I mean, Newsom is the favorite. There's no doubt about it. And then for the VP, AOC is kind of like Newsom being from Cali, AOC New York. That's going to be a tough draw for the Rust Belt. You're much better off. I mean, really, how impactful is the VP? Probably not very, but you're much better off with going with someone like Whitmer if you're trying to win the the Rust Belt state like that, at least a Michigan. So this would be the map for me right now: 296 to 242. Democrats getting back Georgia from 2024. Listen, when it comes to like 2028, it's just so early. I mean, who really knows what's going to happen? I mean, you could see the Democrats doing better in Nevada, winning Nevada. Arizona, I think, is a slightly more Republican state going into 2028. Georgia, slightly more liberal state. North Carolina is a pure toss-up, and then the Rust Belt is matchup dependent, I would say, for sure. With Pennsylvania maybe trending slightly more Republican, and the two other Rust Belt states as pure independents, and possibly also New Hampshire trending towards being a pure independent state. The Liberals only won it by 4 points in 2024. New Jersey, I just can't do it with New Jersey yet. I mean, if the Democrats have to spend on defending it, that would be a victory for Republicans. And now you've got Florida and Ohio in your back pocket. It's a very, very good setup when you're talking about the electoral math going into 2028 with more paths available for Republicans. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Also follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.